What are the downsides of marijuana that people don't talk about? Struggling to enjoy the things you did whilst high if you don't have any. I've been sober for 5 years from alcohol and struggle with this all the time. Most social things people do just aren't fun without the liquor. I'm pretty much a homebody now. I've been sober for 16 years and I lost most of my friends. Some of your former friends look at their own drinking when seeing you quit. Also, it's not fun handing out with a bunch of drunks. Was a pretty regular smoker for years until I started getting extreme panic attacks. Stopped smoking and they have subsided fully. Yep, smoking gave me panic attacks subsided almost totally after quitting. Well, there's the South Park clip that's been making the rounds, and it's a pretty good summation of the risks of prolonged cannabis use. When things in your life are frustrating or upsetting, those negative feelings are an incentive to make changes to your life. But cannabis can relieve those negative feelings, which can result in a person basically putting their life on pause, not addressing negative issues and not looking for positive change. And the other big contributing factor here is that stoners are pretty much harmless and not nearly as annoying as other folks who self-medicate with various substances. Drunks and coke heads and meth users all have behaviors that trigger friends and family to intervene out of anger or frustration or concern, but dope heads are just so mellow and easygoing that they don't send up the same kind of warning flares that somebody driving drunk or blacking out from drinking does. It makes you okay with being not okay. I like to say weed is the cream and sugar to a stagnant life. If the brew is good quality, you won't need to add much else. Shitty gas station coffee? Load up the additives. Regular use seems to fuck with my ability to pay attention and remember shit when I'm sober. It's one of the reasons I quit. Not sure others have these issues though. Dude, I thought I had just a regular memory till I stopped smoking and now I remember everything. They say people don't become physically dependent on it, but as a daily smoker I absolutely feel like garbage and have to smoke to feel normal. But it's better than debilitating back pains and taking opiates. Have you gotten your back looked at by a back pain specialist in the last few years? Lots of effective treatments now, not too risky. Getting irrationally hungry. It's not healthy to eat 1,000 extra calories after having an edible. That is the double-edged sword about edibles if that's all you have. I've made brownies before and should have made a batch without the THC butter. You start bargaining with yourself thinking, how bad could it be if I ate one more? After already eating 3, turns out you explode into a cloud of atoms and think you are dead. Or fall asleep on the floor for 17 hours. Once you're smoking it every day, it's tough to stop. It becomes the number one thing your brain wants. When you get bored, it can fuck with your appetite and your sleep. For some, makes it though to make plans or think about the future makes you complacent. Convinces you you're totally comfortable with the way things are. It's really fun to do, and it's easy to do it often, but it punishes you in much subtler ways than other drugs. Moderation's the name of the game, folks. You 100% described my experience. I quit after 10 years of daily use, and being sober was hard for months. Now I don't even think about it, thankfully. I'm a heavy smoker and I will admit that it fucks up your lungs, sleep isn't as effective, and the complacency that comes with constantly being stoned can be risky for some. Especially dabs. Some bad dabs will fuck up your lungs for a while. I got some bad carts once and I ended up in the hospital and the pain didn't go away for months. The paranoia you get when you've smoked too much. That's the one. Especially with sativa if you already have anxiety. Also taking gummies and thinking they didn't work and then taking more. Worst ride ever. I have to be very aware of my anxiety levels before I get high. I usually don't even bother doing it in social situations anymore. I can handle it at home, when the day and responsibilities are done with just my husband. I can also usually handle it when hanging out with my brothers, but in small doses. With almost anyone else, out in public, or especially in a crowd, and it just intensifies my anxiety. Not always, but it sucks so much when it does that it just isn't worth the risk to me. The negative impacts it can have on one's mental health after long-term use, specifically in those who have underlying mental health issues to begin with. Came here to say just this. Long-term, heavy users can develop a problem called cannabinoid hyperemesis syndrome. It causes severe nausea and vomiting. My ex-husband was a heavy weed smoker and would vomit nearly every single morning before work. He didn't believe it was due to the smoking until his brother, a physician's assistant, confirmed that it's a common issue for regular cannabis users. He quit for a while and the vomiting stopped, but ultimately he wasn't able to quit for good. It was horrible to watch him go through it every day. Opening parenthesis. The treatment regimen is 6 months of no weed. That's tough for chronic users, especially when they're convinced they aren't addicted. The fact that they're all convinced they're not addicted is the worst. I know most addicts go through that to some extent, but weed users are the worst with it. They flat out believe there's no way they could be addicted. This nonsense that it's not addictive. Juat, because it doesn't create a physical dependency doesn't mean potheads are not fully addicted to it. Smoking 6 times a day, before you have to do anything, needing to be high or you feel off or not normal. And if you doubt this, go ahead and quit cold turkey for a month. Best case is you only have wicked cravings for a week. Worst cause, you get super irritable, have terrible dreams, and crave it non-stop for a few weeks. Sincerely, a former pothead who went through quitting. I was like this. I would literally refuse to do anything unless I was stoned, and when I couldn't get any weed I would punish myself by refusing to eat or socializing with friends. I gave it up over a year ago after smoking half an ounce per week for 25 years and will never touch the shit again. Congratulations on quitting. My ex was like this. He hid the volume and frequency from me for years, but he was also extremely successful, so he could kind of get away with it. Nobody is going to say anything about him smoking so much BC he was doing so well, except me of course. Eventually it got to the point where I couldn't take it and didn't want to raise a family with a person who couldn't stand to experience any part of our life together sober. I just imagined being pregnant and him smoking every day, or being in the delivery room and him stepping out to get high, so I left. He absolutely refuses to believe it's an addiction. Memory loss. Totally, and also add memory loss to that list. Have you ever heard about the memory loss issues that can happen? No, but I did hear you could have memory loss issues. Cottonmouth. It's a killer. Little tip. Gargle and swish with mouthwash immediately after smoking. Cottonmouth and the burning throat are caused by resin buildup in your mouth and throat. The mouthwash breaks most of the mucus that has the resin in and allows you to expel it. Not true. Edibles still cause mad dry mouth. Shish, we just want these guys to practice more rigorous oral hygiene. The groggy feeling the next day. I feel more clear after a night's sleep on it. I wake up more alert. It feels great until eventually it feels really bad to not be high. Which leads to needing to be high for anything you do, and you convince yourself that there's no problem with that. Then you plan out your life around being able to get high and only hanging out with other like-minded folks while avoiding anything and anyone that doesn't fit into that mindset. That's just my experience over the course of 40+ years of cycling in and out of dependence. Smoking marijuana, like smoking anything else, increases your risk of mouth, throat, and lung cancer. Nowhere near as bad as cigarettes, but it's still something to consider. There's also the possibility, unproven as of yet, that it can cause mental decline if used regularly. These can be mitigated through responsible consumption and moderation, though. Mental decline in which context? Like lower IQ or like depression? Not that I'm trying to refute either, I'm pretty sure I've felt both slowly happen. Any drug that gives you an enjoyable feeling can cause depression when abused long term. As for the IQ stuff, no idea. Apparently, using drugs of any kind before one's 20s can disturb your brain development and lower your IQ. That people can get dependent and addicted to it. The withdrawals are not deadly like other drugs, but they suck ass for a lot of people, and the symptoms can be bad enough to not be able to quit on your own. Think of it on the same level as nicotine. Quitting isn't going to kill you, but it fucking sucks. It's funny that I saw this post today, as I am currently going through withdrawal right now, on day 4, and it's still pretty rough. Insane hot flashes and sweating, irritability and no appetite, nausea when you do try to force food down, and insomnia. Not a good time at all. Yeah, I despise the weed isn't addicting shit people try to say. I'm fine to admit that I'm absolutely addicted. I look forward to smoking after a long day, and if I know I won't be right home after work to smoke, it genuinely disappoints me. I don't even feel like I get that high anymore, and I just want to quit. Weed is not my thing, and defending it is the last thing I do, but when people say it's not addicting, they are referring to a physical dependency in your body that causes the addiction. What's you're referring sounds completely like a mental dependency. If you're forced to go without smoking for a month, you wouldn't like it, but your body won't go haywire craving for it. Weed is most certainly physically addictive, especially to those who smoke it regularly at an early age. My siblings are ruining their lives because they can't quit, and I'm currently quitting myself and having horrible withdrawal symptoms. Anyone who smokes weed every day most of the day is going to become dependent, and they're hooked on it. The severity of the withdrawal symptoms will vary widely though. Research seems to indicate that the earlier you start smoking weed, the worse the symptoms will be and the easier you will get addicted. So I'm a long-time stoner. I still smoke. And I think overall it's a positive thing in my life, but there are absolutely downsides. I would say the biggest is just that the psychological addiction is very real. Just because you don't get withdrawals like opioids doesn't mean taking a tolerance break isn't unpleasant. It totally is. For a couple nights, the world will seem very boring and you'll feel vaguely restless. That's really about it. It's not horrible, but it definitely exists. Though I should mention I find it easier to quit weed than caffeine, so there you go. The biggest problem with weed is that it makes being bored okay. When you're stoned you don't mind not doing anything, whereas normally boredom would drive you to do something.